Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Nick, for your very kind introduction. Well, why do I speak about molecular problems? I think there are three possibilities to approach medical treatment. Number one is you can do the following. You simply follow the guidelines, which is not so bad. But at least there are so many mistakes in guidelines because they are all based on meta-analytic studies. So using the guidelines alone must not be the good thing. Number two is you follow association studies. This is associated with that. And so in that far, I think I would use this treatment for this disease or for this prevention. But I think all of you who are sitting here are very critical persons, are very critical doctors. And then so far, I think you should use your own brain, switch on the brain, and what you're doing, I think, already, go into the depths, understand what's going on in the cell, what's going on in the genetics, what makes aging, to understand what you're doing when you treat. I think this is so important. This is the reason why I'm starting with this preventive lecture. And we all know that the whole world population changes its shape. This is a picture of China. And with the change, we observe so many biological changes in the body, from the endocrine system to glucose regulation, to many other things, cardiovascular health, increased cancer risk, increased metabolic syndrome. We use our function, nerve velocity, maximum heart rate. Female fertility is very early, as we all know. So this is things we face every day, and we try to prevent the things. We try to give a way to extend the lifespan in a healthy way. That's what we call preventive and regenerative and anti-aging medicine. We got the immune aging, intestinal aging, decreased renal function, decreased detoxification, increased osteoporosis, dysplasias, and so on. That's all what we see during our aging process. But what happened, at least, and what's behind the most of all this, is a chronic inflammation. What is chronic inflammation? Chronic inflammation is a status where the body responds to, let's say, external stress or internal stress like free radical oxidation with a very heating situation. This heated situation you find when you got a wound, you got a scar, and this wound always is red hot. When this happens, in the whole body. This is never locally. Chronic inflammation is generally. If you have a chronic inflammation anywhere, let's say in the gum, you have an inflammation in the coronary as well at the same time. But this is more silent, and the risk we have to face is a silent inflammation. And this is very much linked with Alzheimer's disease, with irritable bowel syndrome, malabsorption syndrome, chronic fatigue, and cancer, and heart disease, and metabolic syndrome, rheumatoid arthritis. Some people have genes which make them more susceptible to get a chronic inflammation, a silent inflammation. These are genes which are involved in the cytokine expression. The cytokine genes like interleukin-6 or the anti-inflammatory gene for interleukin-10. And if you see these pictures here, you can easily find out that the high interleukin-6 levels, which is pro-inflammatory, and low interleukin-10 levels, in a combination shorten the lifespan. While the low interleukin-6 levels and high interleukin-10, that means a more anti-inflammatory situation, extends the lifespan and means more successful aging. So we have to look for this. We have to look into the genes of these patients if he has the right treatment or not. Does everybody of our patient need high dosage of fish oil? No, not everybody. There are some who are very good. And if you see the ApoE, let's say ApoE is a gene which is involved in Alzheimer's disease. And if we see people who have an ApoE gene, I know some patients, but they have a very good anti-inflammatory situation. They never had Alzheimer's in their family because the genes interact one with each other. Chronic inflammation is involved in coronary artery disease, especially metabolic syndrome, which is as well involved in coronary artery disease. Chronic inflammation is involved in what we call AGEs, advanced glycated end products. You see that the binding and the breaking of the collagen fibers is one of the reasons that this, in the beginning, is no problem, but in the end, it is a chronic inflammation, and that's a diabetic person who lose their circulation in the lower extremities, for example. These are the AGEs. They have a receptor, and if they bind to the receptor, that follows transcription by a so-called transcription factor, NF-kappa B, and the DNA produces more pro-inflammatory cytokines.